Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another Simsol webinar. My name is Nicole Neese. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Simsol. Now, writing content estimates can be a hassle. With so many unique items, it can be pretty overwhelming. So in this webinar, we're going to be showing you the best practices for creating content estimates, as well as how to speed up the process so you can submit that claim quickly. All right, now we're going to go through the webinar, the agenda. First, we're going to talk about setting up the content estimate claim. From there, we're going to go into creating a content estimate. Then we're going to talk about the extra fields required for a content estimate, such as age. Then we're going to go into creating custom entries. After that, we're going to be reviewing the inventory summary. Then we're going to touch up on some advanced features we have, and then we'll end it up by printing the actual content estimate. Again, if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A feature. We will address all questions at the end of the presentation, but you can type in your question into that Q&A at any time during it. All right. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Danny. Hi, Danny.
Hi, how are y'all doing?
Great. All right, Danny's now going to take over the screen. You should be able to see the Simsol interface shortly.
All right, thank you very much for that great introduction. I'd like to tell you that we're very happy that you all actually are attending these webinars, and it's given us a lot of insight, and your feedback is very important. So with further ado, we're going to be talking about contents estimates and how do we create them. Well, I'm already in a claim. So you can see that I can see from claim data all the way down to the notepads that you can see right here, notebook, excuse me. And I have it selected on contents estimate. When you do the wizard, when you set up the claims wizard, it will ask you if you would like to use a contents estimate with a coverage and a deductible. Once you put that in there, the wizard will automatically create this contents estimate, as you can see right here. So, but the first thing that we need to do before we start getting into a contents estimate, we must address a couple key factors. The first one is that when you click on the contents inventory, make sure that it says contents inventory and use coverage information says contents, because that ties the coverage to the estimate, and that's very important, or else you won't be able to have those figures carry over to your forms. Okay, so that's very important that you do that. The next thing that you need to do, what I always do, is make sure that you're on the Simsol personal property, but the important thing is keeping up with your pricing. Global pricing table in use, 2018 price guide January. So try to keep up with the most current price guide, okay? If you need to check that, you can always go to database, which is right here, and then select it 2018 price guide. If you follow up with the automatic updates when you first start the program, it will tell you, would you like to take that update, and you will say yes. So I'm just going to click on done to get out of there. All right. Before we continue on to the next screen, we need to address something very important, which is going to be called the inventory valuation, and that's the RCV and ACV amounts. It's very important that you do this, because if not, if it just says 0 and 0 for RCV and ACV, your file will get kicked back. Okay, so another thing that you need to be aware of is that if you're putting in an evaluation for, like, for example, 50,000, and you write in contents over 60, then your file will also get kicked back, because how can you pay for something that is undervalued? So make sure that you match your RCV and ACV above what you're writing for. Okay, so just be aware of that. Another thing, and this is real important, we need to make sure that our default sales tax is in place prior to the first line item, because what happens is when you start picking these line items, it automatically applies a sales tax. If there's nothing in there, that's what you get nothing. So make sure that we address the sales tax. Another way that you can also put sales tax is from the inventory summary page. So as I click on that, and you can see that it's an inventory summary page, I'm going to click on the sales tax. From the sales tax, you could click on lookup, and then it does the same action. So there's two places where we can address it. Okay, I'm going to go back up to the contents inventory, make sure that we have 6% selected for this estimate, and we're ready to go. If you're doing a wind claim and it's a full replacement cost coverage, please remember that excludes sales tax on non-recoverable depreciation. If you're doing a flood claim, by default it's ACV. You don't have to worry about that. Also, we can always add a depreciation table, or which is right here, and I can then come up and click on Simsol table is a good one. Click on yes, and then you can then hit the standard contents depreciation guide. When I click on that, we click on yes, and we make sure that we have that in place. So I'm going to try that again. Simsol table, click yes, click OK, and then that will take in our Simsol table in there. So we click on done. So that way when it comes in, any new line item will then be appreciated as you put the age in. So that's a really nice feature. So with that, we're going to come over and go into the inventory of items. So the contents inventory is divided up into contents inventory, which you see right there. We call that the information window. The inventory of items, that's where we're going to define the areas and actually do the estimate. And the inventory summary is very similar to the total page within a building. It adds everything up. So we're going to go right into the inventory of items, and I'm going to create an area. Remember, there's no dimensions associated to an area. I'm just going to call this Danny's Man Cave. As I select on it, click OK. As I do that, I could have hit scope and it would have went right into it, but I'm going to double click on Danny's Man Cave from the area listing screen, and then that launches us into the contents VSS screen. Here's our furniture components all the way down to pack out. These are called the categories. So as I click on this, you'll see that it will bring up the items associated to that category. If you take a look over in the far right, you can see that anything that I have picked up, like for example, bread maker, or let's go to coffee maker here for just a second. So if I click on coffee maker, then you can see that I have on level 2 and level 3, we have automatic drip and a percolator, large capacity, 1 cup, espresso, and under the counter. So as the building is very similar with the way contents has done it, is that there are 3 levels to the database. Okay, level 1 is very generic, level 2 is a little bit more detailed, and level 3 is the most accurate. You probably want to know what those numbers represent. Let me tell you, it's a little bit different from the building. Okay, what these numbers represent is the high cost of the item is scope number 1. Scope number 2 is an average cost. 3 is a low cost. 4 is a repair and recondition. This one is going to be a heavy clean. And 6 is just a regular clean. There is no stripping and finish. It depends what type of item it is. If it's a table, you might have a scope number 7. Scope number 8 is an appearance allowance. And a 0 is going to be a custom item that you can use. We're all going to go through that. So basically what I'm going to do here is if I want to find a certain item, I can navigate through, for example, some furniture. If I click on the furniture, come down to, let's say, bookcase, I select it. I have the ability to either use level 1 right here on the bookcase. So as you can see, this one does not have a level 2 or 3. So that's the only level that I can go to. So if I need to do a high cost on the bookcase, as you can see, it automatically highlights that. And take a look down here on the bottom. It'll say replace bookcase. And one thing that we need to add will be the age, because when we add the age, it should do the depreciation for us. If you take a look, there's the depreciation that automatically calculated based upon the economic age of the bookcase. I can put in any comments on here. As you can see, the sales tax has been computed and inserted based upon the zip code of the loss. And here I can put in, for example, Kincaid, model number. And if there was a serial number that I can put that in. There's an override screen, which means that I can bring up a separate override screen, which is just an enhanced screen that has every single facet or field box for this item. So you can see I can put make, model, serial number. I can also address salvage. Now that's a big thing for carriers, because if they can get back some amounts based on the loss, then it actually makes you look really well. So for example, and this is not, if you have a salver on the job, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an insured buyback. So it's a net, you're going to get paid net claim payable, and then you're going to then subtract the salvage, and that's what the insured would get. So let's say that if I have, for example, in this case, I have $1,058.94. That includes a sales tax that's embedded in the cost, because that's how I set it up. When we go into sales tax, I'll show you that feature. I can then come up and say, well, I want to take $100 off. So now I can do that for every line item, and then I can get a salvage report when I print the estimate. So it automatically comes up and does the math for me. I've got if it's depreciation recoverable or non-recoverable is available, and also I can hit print specifications if warranted. Put a note in, and then click on done. So that's how we can put in the line items. We can also use the search key, which is right up here, and I really recommend that, because sometimes if you're trying to find hard to find items, let's say that we're trying to find a hanging swag lamp, if anybody knows what that is. Hanging, I'll just put that in. Now see how I've got hanging swag lamp, but I only put in hanging. So as I click on that, it will automatically find it. I'll double click on this, finds it, and then apply the appropriate method of operation to this. So if I want to use an average cost, I can do that. Remember, do not forget about the age. So as you can see that the depreciation is then applied from that. If I don't know make, model, serial number, I leave that blank, and then I continue on. So it's important that you know how to manipulate into the VSS, which is actually a very easy interface. First of all, you can come up and then select the appropriate category, which gets you in the area. And then if you just look over here on the far right for the entire database, it will then come up and find it for you. Then select the method of operation and address any of the make, model, serial number, and age. But it's crucial that you put the age in. All right, so once we have that, that's actually pretty easy to do. You keep doing that same thing over until you're done with all the entries. So there are three views within the contents estimate. There's the VSS, which is the virtual scope sheet, and that's what you're looking at there. We can also click the list mode, and what the list mode does, it's the easiest way to make an edit. So if I need to change a price for this replaced bookcase, let's say the insured told me it's $1,200, I simply come up to replace bookcase and then come over to either the material or the labor. In this case, I can come over to the material cost and then put $1,200 in. As I do that, then the tax will be updated. So as you can see, that's how easy it is to put that in. So remember that the list is going to show you all the items that you have in your estimate, and it's the easiest way to make an edit or deletion. So I can then either put a deletion, I can do an override, I can do an economic age, I can do a sales tax rate if need be, if it's different. Let's say if you bought it in a different county, which would be subject to different sales tax, and make sure you have the receipt. And if I can mark this depreciation recoverable or non-recoverable if applicable. Okay, so once we have that, I am also going to now click on the manual mode. Now the manual mode is kind of interesting, and it's probably one of the most interesting modes within the Simsol system, is because the manual mode is used a lot for contents, not too much in the building, but predominantly used in the contents estimate. What I mean by that is that it's an enhanced view of the list mode, so it'll show you all these. But one thing that I like about the contents, the manual mode for the contents estimates, is come up here and then put in custom items, or let's say that I'm putting in a inventory sheet from that the insured has provided. So what you could do is you could take your mouse and find on your keyboard the word insert. So as I do that, it creates a custom item. So a lot of people don't even go in. Now, a lot of the adjusters don't go into the VSS at all. They'll go right to manual and then just start hand inputting in all the contents items. So for example, if I was looking for a TV set, put the age in, and I'm using the tab key in order to go to field to field. So as you can see, I can come over here to the contents item. Now what I need to do here is I'm going to put a note in. Let's say that this is going to be damaged by water. As you can see here, I've got the age in. Now it's not going to take the depreciation table as you saw in the VSS. I have to provide this. Okay. And then on the make model, I can say that it's a Sony HD 2510 serial number. And then I can place that in. Don't forget about the salvage amount. So let's say that I've got a material cost in here that I need to actually put this in. So with the manual mode, I do have to click in the override to actually put the price in, but it's not bad at all. So if I come over here to the material cost, let's say that this is $1,500, and then select it and click on done. Also, it will also want me to do a major trade classification. I can come over here and click on electrics. As you saw, it did prompt me for that. I can put in TVs or video equipment accessories. Here we got television. So it does want me to complete that for the trade association. And it takes 2 seconds to do, but I would do it because if you print it, you can do a trade association. So it says all my electronics are so much amount of money, all my furniture is so much amount of money. So if you take the time to do that, it works very well. So I'm going to come up here and click on done. If I need to put another custom entry in, I click on insert. All right, and this one here I'm going to put in is a floor lamp. I'm going to hit the tab. I'm going to put the age in. I'm going to put in if there's a comment on there. Remember that I do need to put in the override button. Okay, if I don't put in the override, I can't put in the material cost. So as I do that and place that in there, I do need to put in, for example, the depreciation on that. Yep, I keep on have to put on that major trade classification, so just don't forget about that. So there are 3 views within the contents system. VSS, remember that's the VSS, the virtual scope sheet, that's where you pick it. There's a list mode, which tells you all the line items that you have selected for that area. And there's also the manual mode. Okay, so remember that the manual mode can create a custom item by simply clicking the insert key on that. There is another thing that you can also click. There's a button called custom, and that can be put in through the VSS. I can just come up here and click custom, and there's my item. So that gives you an item right here. Let's say that I want to put in, for example, a table, coffee table. So as I select that, I've got the waste, I've got the quantity. Now here I don't have to put in, it automatically gives me the override screen. So here I can put $150 on this item. So as I click on it, I put the age in, and once I do that, I still need, since it is a custom item, I still have to put the depreciation on there. Remember, before we do that, enter make, model, serial if applicable. If you need to take salvage, you can do so. And then don't forget about the major classification and sub-classifications on that. So we'll put some hardwood furniture on that, and now click on done. So there's a couple ways we can put line items in, okay? The VSS, we can do the manual, we can do the custom. All right, so that's what we have as far as the contents using the VSS. I'm now going to go into a little bit more of things that we can do while we're in the VSS. And what I'm talking about is women's dress shoes. So I'm just going to click on that, women's, see what comes up. See if we've got women's dress shoes. Here we go, right here. Now, what you can do here is on the women's dress shoes, you can pick scope number 1. Let's talk about Amelia Marcos's shoe collection. So if I click on scope number 1, she's always number 1. We can come up here and put the age in. I can't put in, when you do put the age in, please be aware you can only do whole numbers. So usually I would hit 1, 2, or 3, something like that. So once you put the age in, but this time on the quantity of pair, I'm going to select 10 pairs. So as I do that, it's ready to use an option called split. So what split does, it's nothing more than a copy so that we can then come into the manual mode and then change the pricing for each individual line item. So this is pretty a neat feature. So let me just activate that on the split. It'll ask me to split the items into 10 individual items. I click on yes. And then the color code on that is going to be, it looks like a light yellow. And so if you've got that, that's your indication that you have the split. I'm going to come here to the list mode to see what it looks like. As you can see, it put the 10 pairs with that price. So what we can do is that we can go to the manual mode, and then from that, go down to the actual price, which is going to be right here. See if it won't let me do that on that one. Let me come into the override, and I can then make my change. So if this one is 120 and I want to change that to 155, I'm going to click on done, come to the next one, and then I'm going to select the override. And instead of that, I'm going to select 135. So I can do this and change that price for all 10 items. And you can also do that from the list mode as well. So if I want to come up here, it might be easier to do it that way too. So you can come right over here, the material cost, let's say that this is 165. So you can see that I can do that really pretty much easy. You can either use the manual mode or the list mode, but you do need to go to the override and then change that amount. Makes it nice and easy. So I'm not going to take time and do all that for y'all. But anyway, so you get the idea that we have the VSS to put the line items or find the line items in, pick the method of operation. So if you're cleaning it, use either 5 or 6. If you're doing an appearance allowance, use scope number 8. So that works really well. Okay? And that's pretty much it for the contents. It's actually very easy to use. It's a simple interface. You just need to go and pick it, or you could click on the custom item and then put it in there, or go to the manual mode and click the insert key. Those are the 3 ways of putting line items in. Okay, and you just keep on doing it. Remember, don't forget about the salvage, make, model, serial, and the age. The age is crucial if you're using the VSS portion of it so that it can apply the table to that. So once you've picked all the line items, I always come up here to the list. Remember that you can always come up, select the item, right click, and either address the economic age, sales tax rate, or if you would like to delete them. You can actually delete multiple items by using the control key, and they're gone. So you do have that ability there. Okay. You can use a macro function on here if you did want one. A lot of people do not because they're all individual, but you can create MyDB items too. So what is a MyDB item? It's very similar to what it is in your building. Is that, for example, I can click on MyDB. Actually, excuse me, I have to go into a line item, excuse me, and come up here to women's dress shoes. And then let's say that this one is a custom, let's say dandy or type of shoe. And once I do that, I can then come up and say these are $210. And once I do that, I can come up and click on MyDB. And then I'm just not going to categorize it at this time, but I can click on done. And now that's been saved. So if I go to my next area, or if I go into my next item, I can simply click on MyDB, and there is the replace the women's dress shoes. So if you have things that you always repetitively use within your estimates or your contents estimates, you can put them under MyDB, and that might help you out a little bit. All right, so you can see that I have two of them there. I can just right click and then select delete. All right, so now that I have pretty much the mechanics of the VSS done, to get into another area and start a new area, I can click on done, and then I would just click on the area, okay? If I ever need to make a change to the name, I can highlight this and click edit. It's real simple. Okay, so that's pretty much what we've got in the contents estimate, but I'm going to go into the, once we have all our areas up here, I'm going to click on the inventory summary. And from the summary, if you're doing a full replacement cost coverage, you need to make sure that your sales tax is addressed. I'm going to click on sales tax. And the way I have it up, I can also use my lookup feature. Don't forget about that. That's that 6% right there. But what carriers are wanting to do is embed the sales tax in the base price. And that's what this function is to do right here. Include sales tax in unit cost. If you don't want to apply sales tax, you can bullet the none. If you want to include it in the RCV totals, that means that you're only taking tax on the RCV side of itself. If you're doing a full replacement cost coverage, that'll be probably associated to a wind or other than flood. Then you would select that one. If you only need to do it on ACV totals, you can select the all sales tax including ACV totals. There is a depreciated sales tax included in ACV totals. That is a pro rata base. That means that it takes the sales tax from the RCV and applies it, and then goes to the ACV side column and does the same thing. Either the include sales tax and unit cost or the depreciated sales tax included in ACV totals is probably the preferred method. So check with your IA firms or the carrier on how they would like that to be presented. I'm going to click on done, and there is another thing called other tax, which is not used because it is Arizona privilege tax, but we do apply it to contents if you're in Arizona. Basically what it does, it's a percentage based upon the RCV amount that you want, and it's normally 2%, okay? So then I can set the rate. Salvage will add up everything on the system, so you can see I have $125 on the contents for salvage. The deductible, you don't need to do this because the deductibles already have been selected. If you're doing a flood claim, which I'm pushing over here on the protection removal, you can actually set up to an item to say, let's say I'm going to relocate my sales, my contents to get out of harm's way. And I can put the amount up to $1,000 to do that if this was a flood claim. So I'm just going to say 65. There we go. And what that does is it allows $1,000, which is not subject to the deductible, to be given to the insured to address items that were taken off-site prior to the flood event, if you're doing a flood claim. So I'm going to click on Done and get out of that. So that's pretty much on the contents inventory of items. I'm going to show you some advanced features now. And what I'm talking about here is contents from an Excel, created from an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to give you the steps. One thing that I'd like to tell you is we do have guides for you to do that. And here's a sample of one of the guides. And we will send that to you. They're going to send you 3 things. One for the insured to do, so they have the steps to create a contents Excel spreadsheet. One for the adjuster, so he can then follow it up and then place that in the estimate. Okay. And I also have a sample of a contents Excel spreadsheet. It's the layout. So if you just take that and send it to the insured, a lot of the work is done because we did the resizing of the columns. Doesn't come out very well, so we resized it and also put in 100 items in there available with the formulas put so it can add it all up for you. And there's certain rules that I'm going to go through right now with you on that. So I'm going to minimize this for just a second and tell you about how do we take a contents Excel spreadsheet into the Simsol system. So the first thing to do this is we need to come up and get out of the claim. And there's one, we're going to go to Tools. Okay, now remember, it is spelled out in the guide. I'm going to click on Tools, and as you can see, one of them says Contents Excel Spreadsheet. So as I do that, find a location of where it is. The system will automatically put the file name in, and the only thing you need to do is click Save. Now, once you have that, you're going to send that to the insured. And so I'm going to open up one that I've already have as a sample, and that way you can see it. So I'm going to come over here and give the Excel spreadsheet a look. This is what we're going to be sending you, the Excel guide for adjusters as well as for the insured. All right, here's a sample contents XLS. This is what we created. We'd like to send that to you. Because what it does is it's ready for, it's all set up. So I see how I have the quantities, categories selected correctly. In the spreadsheet that we created or got from the Simsol system, this would be all scrunched up. You wouldn't have any formulas in here. So basically you can use this sample on every contents Excel spreadsheet to be given to the insured. There's a couple rules that you must follow, okay? First of all, you must have a room name for every line item. That's the first rule. The second rule, no spaces. So every line item has to be filled out consecutively, okay? So it has to have no spaces on there. The next one is you need a quantity. That is required. So the room name's required, quantity's required. Now on the unit of measure, keep it at EA. If it says lump sum or pair or anything like that, do not put that in. Leave it like it is there, EA, okay? Item description is required, so make sure that you have a description. Age in years, remember it's a whole number. Please do not use 0.1, 0.2, or any of that, okay? Comments, that's optional. Make, model, serial number is optional for the line item, but I highly recommend that if you've got electronics or any high item, you might want to put that in. Purchase from is also an option. That doesn't need to be put in. K, column K, unit cost is mandatory. That's the price. Okay. The depreciation, tell the insured not to put the depreciation. The adjuster will take care of that. And based upon that, it will come up and calculate the amount that you're wanting to put in. So that's what we need to have in. I'm gonna close this up here, and I'm gonna come in and put a sample. You sent this to the insured, and the insured has now filled it out. So I'm then received this by email, and this is what I've received. All right, so I've got the name, I've got of the room. Make sure it's all in there. There is no breaks, no line spacing there, so no blank fields of any kind until your last item. And tell your insureds not to put the totals in. You know, like some of the line items, they will. You'll just have to delete those. Okay, so it has to be look just like this. So then make sure that you have EA. Make sure you have a description and an age, and you can then put this over if you want to and move it over. Remember, no decimal points, so 10.1, 10.2 will not work. Comments is an option field, make, model, and serial is optional. As you can see, I have a burnout motor here on this Maytag, excuse me, with a model and serial. And then you can put the purchase from. And I'll tell you something, in my experience, when you give these to the insureds, they will love to do this. They will come in and put the purchase from. It's very detailed. Then it'll tell you what the estimate is. Tell them not to use the depreciation. As you can see, the price is then derived over here from the number from the quantity times the estimated. So as you can see, there it is, $750. So once we have that all in, and that looks good, how do we put it into Simsol? Okay, so I'm going to just minimize this for just a second. I'm going to go into the claim. I'm going to go into the inventory of items. So as you can see, I still have, if you have previous items that the adjuster did, that's fine, it won't interfere. So basically what we need to do is come up here to the Excel import. From the Excel import, we're going to hit the browse button. The browse button is located right here with the 4 dots. So as I click on this, I'm then going to go find where that is located, and then I'm looking for contents in my desktop. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select desktop, and I should find contents items, which are right here. As you can see, there's my contents list report that the insured provided to me. I can double click on it. And now it says how many items that I have. Now I have the ability to actually put depreciation in. Now this is a group depreciation, but I want to put this in because if I forget one, I might get it kicked back. So let's say I do 15% and I click OK. Now the audit procedure will come up with a green done and done. This is the end result that you want. Okay. Now if you get an error, then the verification will tell you where it's located. And I wanted to show you that in our handout, is that we do have it. So if there is an error coming in, it's going to say where you need to fix. It'll say what cell site. Go to A5 and click on that. Okay, so we are going to provide this to you, and our head of technical support did an excellent job in creating this document for you. So anyways, I'm going to close this up for just temporarily, and the last step to bring it in is come up and click import. So as I do that, take a look right here. It picked up all those items in. Now, there is a thing that we need to do. There is no trade associations associated to this. So if I need to make an entry and I go to list mode, and I need to check it, if I need to change the price and I need to change it from, let's say 150 on the digital scale, the problem is that when I do that and I click on done, it will not let me do it. I need to put this in to a category. It doesn't matter what it is, you still need a category. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and click on electronics, select it, and now click on done. It's going to take it. So remember, always put in, when you're doing corrections from the Contents Excel spreadsheet, you need to make sure that we address the major classification and sub-classification. With that, I can then come up and click on done. So that's pretty much it for putting in Contents Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to click on the done button, and I'm going to then proceed into the inventory summary. So we can come up here, just make sure that our sales tax is included in base price. Remember, you can always hit the lookup, click on done. If you do have to check salvage, there it is. If I need to do protection, remember, you need to put that in. There is an audit piece on here, so I can click on print. And when I do that, I'm going to do a print preview. So this is checking for stupid stuff, actually. You got your coverage information, no issues, zero quantity, zero unit cost, items over $2,500, and line items different from the system computed. So we're good on this audit. So all I need to do is hit the little door and get out of it. All right, so that's good. Now, to print this is real easy to do. You're going to take your mouse and you're going to click the global print. From the global print, we're going to then select the contents inventory. Now, what we need to do is we can present it in a condensed format. I always do formal because it looks better if we do that. And it has the estimate recap. I don't put the vitals in. I usually take that off. But take a look in with the total page. So we're going to do a formal, and we're going to have a inventory summary page. Now, if I did protection, it's going to give me a flood protection report automatically. If I put salvage, it will automatically check salvage for me. One thing I like about the content side is it will also put tracking numbers, and if I need to print specifications, it can do that. There's another one called print spec once. That means that for a first line item, same line item, it will give you the spec on it, but for any other areas with the same line item, it will not print the spec. So that's kind of nice. Included in sales tax, it will break out the sales tax for you if you wish to do that. Okay, so once I have that in there, I click on print, and I'm going to do a print preview. So as I do that, it starts off with the estimate cover page. Now it brings in the detail of the estimate. As you can see, it has age, quantity, unit cost, RCV, depreciation, and ACV. Okay, so we can put that in there. As you can see, make, model, and serial number is addressed if applicable, and any notes that you have. Okay, so we've got that replace hanging swag lamp. We have that TV, floor, and I'm now going to go into the next page and keeps going. If you come up into the import from Contents Excel spreadsheet, you can take that it's starting off from the bottom column here, or mid page, excuse me. So this is from the contents import. And I'm going through the estimate. And it stops at the total page, or inventory summary page. And as you can see, I've got my RCV difference in ACV. Here's my applicable sales tax that was applied, and it's embedded into the cost. So it's not going to show up an RCV diff and ACV. Okay. Here's my contents loss gross, and we also have the salvage being applied, the actual participation or the deductible, and plus the removal charge, if you remember, on that for the protection. So there we go, and it's in there. Here's the flood protection items, a relocation fee. Here's my replaced bookcase. This is my salvage report, replaced bookcase and coffee table. And that would be my claim off there for my contents. So that's pretty easy on how to do that. The last advanced feature that I'd like to show you is mainly to incorporate, and this is really slick, incorporate your building estimate into your contents estimate. And you're probably wondering, what are you talking about? I'm going to come up and talk about the building items that you would use in a contents. I'm talking about a TI claim, tenant improvement building claim. That means the building items that you would normally associate for the building in, let's say if we're talking about a flood claim, we could take 10% of those line items and apply it to the contents. Okay? So with that, then we can come up, and I'm just going to come up to the kitchen here, and for the TI, wait for it to, so I'm using the building with the proper database, and so that it can give me the proper pricing. So as you can see, remove dishwasher, replace dishwasher, we have an oven, and these items are owned by the insured. Okay, so let's make that clear, that we're doing a TI, tenant improvement. That means the insured, who has just a contents only claim, is actually paying for these building items, and they can come up to 10%. So how do we put that in there? Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we're going to go to loss information coverages, and there's a reason for that, because I need to take, this is a contents only claim, so that means I'm taking 10% of whatever the contents is. So if I got 12,000, I got 1,200 here. And I'm also putting in no deductible, and that's crucial, so that it'll have no deductible on it. My coverage B, which is contents, has a whole deductible of $1,000. Okay? So once I have that selected, I'm going to come up here to the building estimate information window, and I'm going to make sure that it says use coverage information building, or in this case, I renamed it to TI dwelling. Make sure that it includes it on all forms, and policy contains RC clause. So I have that all in there. I can check and also apply full replacement, ACV on it. And also I can, if I do have overhead and profit that's on the job, you probably will not, make that 00. And then check the sales tax on it. So I've got the material 6%, we're all good to go. So if for you flood adjusters out there, so what's the problem? The problem is I'm taking building items that have to go from the building to be transferred into the content side. That's what I'm talking about. Simsol has provided you with a custom NFIP report tenant, and let me show you what that looks like. Well, first of all, let me just show you where it's located. You're going to right click on forms, you're going to go to new, and then you're going to hit the WIL carrier, and then you can just scroll down and you're going to see NFIP report template, or tenant, excuse me. And then you can click on done, which loads it in. I'm going to hit cancel for just a second and go to that NFIP report tenant form. Check this out. This is so cool. So as we scroll down and we fill out the final report, take a look at the building. The building items of that $2,000 of amount that we paid for building for the appliances is now been applied to the contents. And the deductible is set at $1,000. And it has an excess over limit because I've got excess limit over in the content side, but I also had an excess limit on the building side as well, which adds up. Is that not cool? So that's awesome. So that's how we do an NI, or excuse me, a TI form, and it makes it really easy to do. Excellent. It makes a real easy form to do. So try that out. That's excellent. All right, now we're running out of time here, so let me just wrap it up real quick. Wanted to thank you so much for doing it, and we're going to take your questions that we have.
All right. Anything else? Sorry, Danny, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, we're pretty good. I wanted to show that TI form. That was real important.
All right. So we just have a couple of questions. One of the questions we have here is it was one point where you were showing the global depreciation amount. He asked, how did you change it? Must it be one at a time? And also, is it possible to place that amount in the spreadsheet when you do the import for the global depreciation amount?
On the depreciation, if you saw when I did the import, let me just bring that in again once more so you can see. I'm going to go to scope of damage. I need to go into the inventory of items and then click on Excel import and then bring that in. I'm going to come back here to my where it's located, and that's located on the desktop under contents. There we go. And here's the actual list. So when I bring it in, it's asking for this 88 items, what depreciation do you want to put in? That's up to you. I personally will put in a global of 15 or 20%, because if I miss one line item in there, it possibly get kicked back. If I put it in here, it's going to go. Might be wrong, but you're not going to get flagged on it. Okay. So I always put in, for example, maybe 15 or 20, something like that. And then I'll click OK and it will apply it. Okay. And then I click import. Okay. I can change the depreciation one by one as well. So I'm going to just cancel this now and then come into, for example, if I needed to change the depreciation, I would go to manual mode. And then from the manual mode, here's the depreciation. You see that right there? And what I can do is I can click on 4 down arrow. This one could be 3 down arrow. This one could be 7 down arrow. And I can continue on that way. And that's why I'm depreciating very quickly manually by using the manual mode and your down arrow on your keyboard.
Great. I have another question here. This is for a specific person. It says, when we do inventory items in the field, we attach sensitive tape and a number to each item or a group bag. How would we conform these numbers to tag numbers? He also said we also tag each photo with the number or the numbers.
It's not that complicated. I will show you that we do have, when I come into my digital photos and I want to bring in, for example, a contents on here, I will have a digital name, but I can also tag it with an image name and a number if they want to do that. So if they want to use a corresponding number to their photos, they may do so. Okay, so they can say that this tag number might be batch 1 501. And that might be tag, let's say 213 or something. So they can place that in there. It does not do it automatically. It will create the item number of how many numbers you put in, but you can go back and then attach a bag one or a batch number or a tag number to it. I hope that helps you, but we cannot assign the line item to the tag automatically. Any other questions?
I don't see any more questions, but I'm just going to give you guys just a couple of more minutes, maybe a minute or so, just to see if you do have any questions. Maybe someone is typing in one right now. I just want to let you know we're going to be following up with an email. The email will have a recording to it once we do the editing, and it will also have the template to the spreadsheet that Danny showed, as well as also that guide that he referred to. We're also going to have a link to that. It's also going to have a survey. If you would just say, it's a very quick survey, less than 10 questions, that really will help us as far as improving our process. And if you have any suggestions for webinar topics, The next couple webinars we have coming up, May 23rd is going to be talking about flood form claims. And then on June 13th, we have a webinar about preparing for storm season. We still haven't created ones for July on, so if you have any suggestions, please share them with us. We really hope that you are benefiting from these webinars. Again, these webinars, we also, once we do edit them, we also put them on our YouTube channel as well too. So make sure you're subscribing with that as well. Okay, I have one more question. We're probably going to be wrapping it up with this one. When placing depreciation in the spreadsheet, what is the format?
The format is basically a whole number. It cannot be a decimal point, and it's assigned when it comes in a placement on the Excel spreadsheet as a field name. So when Simsol reads it, it knows that that is a depreciation column, and it reads just raw numbers coming in. So I hope that helps out a little bit. But you can't use decimal points in depreciation. Cannot. 1 or greater.
Oh, all right. Just want to thank everyone for attending. Again, just want to reiterate that we are going to be sending an email that's going to provide the spreadsheet.